I am on a mission to find the best book about learning Go. Hi, I'm Jonathan Hall. People frequently ask me what book they should read if they want to learn to program in Go. And I learned to program in Go about 8 years ago. The book I read is long obsolete. So I'm on a new mission to find the best recent book about learning Go. This is why I went to Amazon.com recently and I bought 6 different books, all published within the last year to a year and a half, designed specifically for beginners to the Go programming language. And I'm reviewing each one. This is my second video in the series. Be sure to subscribe so you get the rest as they come out. And I'll have a playlist in the description if you want to watch the previous one. Today, I'm reviewing this book, Go Programming in Easy Steps by Mike McGrath. Let's just dive in and see how it goes. So right off the bat, on the back cover, the book claims that this is ideal for newcomers, students, and experienced programmers wanting to quickly grasp key Go features. So that's the intended audience of this book. I disagree a little bit. I think an experienced programmer would be very bored by this book. So I would really not recommend this for an experienced programmer. It's also a fairly short book, 192 pages. You can see it's not that thick here. So, just based on the length, you can imagine it doesn't have that much depth of information. Now, the book is written in a fairly straightforward manner, fairly matter-of-factly. There's not a whole lot of fluff or extra content, which is good for a book this length. If it had fluff, you'd get no actual information out of it. What I don't really like about this book, though, is I think it's its main feature. It's called In Easy Steps. Now, I don't know this series. I've never read it before. There are many books in this series on various topics. But what it seems to refer to, let's see if I can show you here on the camera. You can see each topic has these numbered steps, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I really don't like it, at least not for programming. Maybe it would be good if I was baking a cake. But what it effectively does is it breaks each program into these little segments that are not self-contained. Now sometimes the steps are effectively in order in the sense that if I were just to copy and paste the code from each step in order in a text editor, I would have a working program. Other times, though, I have to just be very intentional. Okay, this goes here, and then I have to copy this into a different spot and copy this up to earlier. I don't know. Maybe somebody likes this format. I think it's very unnatural. I would much rather just see a full code listing and then have maybe line numbers or something else that breaks it down in a more narrative style. Because this way, you never or almost never see the complete code unless you actually follow the instructions exactly as explained into your text editor. You can't just look at the page and see what the completed program looks like or the example. You have to do that mental gymnastic and that mental puzzle building in your head. So honestly, I'm sorry to the publishers and the author. I don't like that feature of this book, and that's the title feature. So I hope there's somebody out there who likes that, because it's not me. Moving on, let's talk about the content of the book, what it actually discusses. So as lightweight as the material in this book is, if it weren't for the sort of awkward size, if the book were half this size, I would call it a pocket reference. It's really not that much detail in this book. So as a general rule, every topic gets a single 2-page spread. And it looks something like this. So this one's about handling errors. You get a little description, and you get your 4 steps, your 4 step-by-step steps to do something with error handling. And then if you turn the page, it's another topic about files. So each topic gets a very small amount of space, 2 pages, generally speaking. Some of the topics go a little bit longer, I think, near the end, or the topics build on each other. But it offers fairly light information on each topic. Another thing I don't really like about this book, especially given the limited size, is the way the code is formatted. Most pages have some code, although it's not formatted the way I like. But there's a lot of white space in the code. And I feel like that's a big waste of space in a book this size. A book this small really needs to have dense information, and it doesn't. A lot of the information, a lot of the space in the book is wasted with white space in the code samples. So I think that's unfortunate. I would rather have more information rather than code white space. It's also a little bit contradictory, given the advice on page 17 of the book. It says, it is good practice to always ensure your Go source code is properly formatted by the Go Funct tool. Now, I agree with that statement, that it should always be formatted that way. But they don't even format the code in the book that way. So that's a little bit annoying, but not a really big deal. Now, due to the publication date of this book, published in 2020, sadly, it doesn't cover generics at all, which is one thing I'm really looking for in these books I'm reviewing. It also doesn't talk about Go modules, which is a pretty essential piece of information, even for a newcomer to Go. I mean, these days, the very first thing you do on a Go project is you initialize your module. So that's a pretty big oversight, something that is going to confuse anybody, honestly. Anybody trying to learn Go with this book is going to run into that and be confused. And hopefully Google or Stack Overflow will help them, but that's going to be a problem. And then also another topic it doesn't discuss is testing, which is a theme I seem to be finding in these books. Many of them don't talk about testing. But even the topics it does talk about, as you might imagine for a book this small, it's very light on detail. It doesn't even talk about all of the data types. Many of the things it talks about are just too lacking in detail to really get you very far. Now, one thing that's a little bit funny, given that it's so light on so much detail, is there's actually a 2-page spread in here about GoTo, which is a keyword in Go that practically nobody uses and nobody should use, and you should not be using GoTo. It does say it's frowned upon, so kudos for that. At least it encourages you not to use it, but I think it's funny, given such a small book, that it would spend 2 pages on GoTo and not something a little bit more substantial. Let's talk about accuracy. Now, I didn't really find anything terribly wrong in this book in terms of accuracy, but there is some outdated information, and some of it's a little bit dangerous. This book doesn't talk about modules, which I already mentioned. It assumes the previous way of doing things in Go before modules existed, and it gives you advice on how to set up your Go environment without modules. That information is obsolete. So if you're trying to set up your Go environment, according to this book, you're going to run into trouble. What's really sad, though, is that this book came out several years after modules came out. So there's really not a good excuse for that to be the case. Go modules were first introduced in 2018. This book was published in 2020. And as of the time this book was published, Go 1.14 was out, which had already made modules standard. So when they were first introduced, it was optional. By the time this book came out, they were already standard. So there's really no excuse for this book to not address that topic and to, sadly, give bad, outdated information instead. Other than that, I don't see any errors in the book, so you don't have to really worry about that. You're just going to have a difficulty in the first couple chapters when you're trying to set up your environment. Let's talk about the book physically. Physically, this is a stunning book. It's got color on every page, full color. It's not just 1 or 2 colors. This is full color with little tooltips that are fancy icons with colors. Each chapter has its own color. And look here on the foredge of the book, you can see each chapter has its own little color key. So it makes it really easy to flip to the chapter you want. I just wish there was more in each chapter to want to flip to. But it is a beautiful book. I'm not sure how much that's really worth when you're trying to learn a language, but for what it's worth, there you go. It's a fancy, glossy book. It looks nice. What's my conclusion? Well, it is a beautiful book. That's about the nicest thing I can say about it. The awkward narration style with these easy steps that really kind of get in the way leave me very disappointed. The fact that the book is so outdated with regard to modules is a big red flag. And honestly, going into it, I'm a little bit surprised to find a book I liked less than the last one. So who should read this book? Honestly, I can't recommend this book to anybody. If it's the only book you have available in your public library, maybe it's worth it. Otherwise, I would just skip this book. Get a different one. The one I reviewed last week, Go Programming Language for Dummies, would be an improvement over this one. Hopefully, I'll find a better book, one I can truly wholeheartedly recommend. Stay tuned, hit the subscribe button, make sure you like the video if you learned something, and I'll be back with another book review soon.